Good afternoon to everyone and good morning to Mukta ma'am. Success is not an activity but a process. This quote is well proved by our today's dignitary. My name is Ankita Yadav, coordinator in Industry Institute Interface Committee, and on behalf of IMDR family, I heartily welcome our today's guest, and she is none other than the gold medalist of batch 2002, Mukta Karandikar ma'am. It's a privilege to have you, ma'am, for today's session on the topic of financial operation as an expert. Talking about Ma'am's achievement, she is an expert in financial operations and worked progressively in senior roles in the domain of program management, digital transformation, and managing operations of large financial service companies. Recently, she worked with Goldman Sachs in their New York headquarters as Chief of Staff for Global Operations Organization of 950 people and annual turnover of $150 million. She also has work experience with Citibank, ING Life Insurance, ICICI Prudential, and P&O Nalloyd. She has some remarkable achievements on her credit. Let's take a look at few of them. She is winner of multiple national strategy competition while representing the Indian School of Business, winner of All India Management Association's paper presentation competition on management and organizational challenge in India 2010, awarded first prize in the ceremony hosted by President of India then, winner of Google Case competition for Android-based apps market growth strategy in India, winner of strategy competition hosted by CNBC, winner of National Institute of Industrial Engineering's national competition for retail growth, winner of ING Excellence Award 2010. Apart from all her achievements, she is a very kind and humble person by nature. Before we start with the session, ma'am, IMDR wishes you a very best of luck as you'll be joining Morgan Stanley in their New York headquarters. Ma'am, now I would like to request you to please begin with the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Ankita. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. And this is really indeed a pleasure and a very special moment because it's always something that is very close to your heart when you come back to your alma mater to interact with the new generation of students and hopefully have a very good dialogue, which is useful to all of you that have taken time off, from your schedules and, spending some time here with me. So I hope this session is of use to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to either post them in the chat box or ask them, after the session. And then Ankita can moderate that for us. So that's kind of the rules of the play. I have put together a simple slide deck. Hopefully we can walk through that, and that will answer some of your questions in terms of what financial operations exactly are and what kind of careers take shape and what are the problems that you get to solve as part of an expert in financial services operations. So as before I get into the slide deck, I just wanted to give a little bit of more color in terms of how my career has progressed, and maybe that might be of interest to you to see how your paths can kind of go on similar lines. So the so as Ankita mentioned, I passed out from my MDR in 2002. I was actually a marketing major, so I did not have a finance background or any such thing. Though I came from my undergrad was economics. I joined P&O Nedloyd at that point of time, was a shipping company which used to come to campus for their management trainee program. So I got placed, and though I had no specific interest in shipping as such, I was like, it's a great job, it's a great company, they're paying well, so let me take it. I would say that this was a great experience because I did learn a lot. But looking back, I think life is a series of accidents. So you take decisions and then kind of things unfold from there. So though I was marketing major, I joined the shipping company, and then they had a general management training program, and they put me in, not in marketing, but in a team called business systems division. So I didn't know anything about IT or technology. And my first job, I had to write some requirements and build a system for some regulatory compliance of customs and uh, things like that. So that's how I started. It was very, very different from what I studied in IMDR. But I think one of the things that did help me in that point of time, our director used to be Mr. Bhupatkar, who who used to kind of harp on something called self-driven learning system. I don't know if they still talk about that, but that was something that he would always talk about, saying self-driven learning system, and you should be on the driver's seat. I think that was kind of key for me, because you realize that what the foundation IMDR gives you is just a foundation. It's a good starting point. You have a good understanding of how things are, but you are by no means you are an expert in any field, and the knowledge is kind of like a vast ocean, and there is a lot that you can continue to learn, and you have to learn to keep yourself progressing in your career. So I learned about systems and requirement writings and things like that. And the the good thing was, because I didn't kind of step back from it, or got kind of really put off by it, saying that I've done marketing, roll with the punches, take every opportunity that comes your way. It may not be something that you have planned for, but it's still an opportunity. Don't say no to an opportunity just because it's not exactly how you want it, and go with it. So the benefit of that was, because I did those requirements for the Mumbai port very well, they actually then sent me to do kind of similar activity across the world. And this is when I'm like, kind of your age. I was 23, 24, and I could travel to like South Africa, Dubai, Singapore, Tanzania, Kenya, UK. It was like a long list. I was constantly traveling, on this sort of a project. So it was very exciting at that point of time. So I started with that story is because we sometimes, at least I had those blocks as to, initially, when some opportunity was presented, like I don't want to do this, but I think when I took the opportunity and kind of moved forward, that really helped me. So that's kind of set the stage for my career. I was in P&O for a few years, but eventually I did realize, I was never very passionate about shipping. So I wanted to move out. And because I had all this system and project management background, I got a job in ICICI Prudential in their business excellence team. ICICI Prudential is a life insurance company. And that's where my journey of kind of financial operations began. And in ICICI Prudential, I got to learn project management. They trained me on quality, Six Sigma. I was a Six Sigma black belt, and I was able to understand various techniques of service operations, and how do we actually look at service operations and improve them. After that, I moved to Bangalore. I started working in ING Life Insurance, again in a project management domain, in the life insurance company. As I was getting more and more ingrained into kind of the operations of financial services, I thought that this is a time to actually augment my learning and actually see what operations is all about, because I had majored in marketing, and then kind of was, serendipitously put in like operations domain and then service operations. And I really liked it and enjoyed it, but I did want to learn a little bit more technical things around it. So I decided to do another kind of a follow-up MBA. And I did 1 year MBA in Indian School of Business, ISB, in Hyderabad. And this is where some of the case competitions and all those things came into play. After ISB, I joined Citibank. Now, because I had a project and operations background, I could get a role in Citibank. But Citibank was again a completely different domain. It was about corporate banking, wholesale banking, and I was doing again, operations role there. Then from Citi, I moved to New York, got a kind of a new job here. And then after I moved to New York, I kind of applied to Goldman Sachs on their website. Cold, didn't know anyone. Put my CV there, thankfully got a call, interviewed there, and that's where my journey began in Goldman Sachs 7 years ago. That was a great opportunity. And one of the reasons I think I could crack that interview, coming new to this country, having no background, was because I think I had a strong foundation in my discipline. So I had, I think, kept myself abreast of the latest trends, what are some new areas of focus, and I had my own philosophy about it, in terms of how do we look at operations, and I think that has helped me. And in Goldman Sachs, I have played multiple roles, all in financial operations, starting again as a project manager there, and then kind of moving up. In my current, my most recent role, I was a chief of staff for an organization, which is a global organization. which gave a lot of insight and learning into how a big organization works and what you can do to really contribute and move your career forward. The reason I kind of gave you this entire journey was to show that there are a couple of things. Firstly, people think that financial operations is a finance domain and you must have a finance background. That's not necessary. I think I felt actually it was more important to have more of an operations background, and you don't have to go and do another MBA or anything, but to have like understanding of some of the concepts of improvement and continuous improvement before you actually get into the real finance aspect of it. So that's the first part. And secondly, there is this kind of I would say feeling that, it's like back office jobs, they're not really exciting. You don't really get paid. It's the term quote unquote back office. You feel like it's something in the back and it's like put in the corner and there is nothing that is happening. And my experience has been that it's not really true. Back office is just a term that has come from a specific capital market operations where there is front office, middle office, back office, who have kind of different interaction points with the customer. It doesn't mean that the back office is like in the back or doesn't have any responsibilities or is not really important or is not really paid, because finally we are the people who actually get to deliver the product as such. The other benefit I think personally that has helped me a lot and which was suiting my personality is in operations. You are not really selling anything. You don't have any kind of target pressures. Your job is to look at the process and see eventually how we can kind of make it better and how we can improve. So if you have that type of a mindset of like continuously improving things, trying to see how things can be made better, this is a great avenue for anyone with that mindset to kind of move forward. So I just want to walk you through some kind of things around careers in financial operations. Um, so the first thing about what is financial operations, and the way I have structured this presentation is because most of the students are going to be PGDM1 students. I've tried to keep it fairly simple, and in terms of kind of complexity, tried to reduce the complexity and made it very generic so that those of you who haven't really had a lot of experience or haven't had a chance to really understand how like the financial systems work, etc., can still get a general view of the presentation. By no means this is a complete view of financial services or a comprehensive view of even financial operations. This is I would say, even an oversimplified version of what financial services operations are, what role they play. And this is meant to act as I would say, starting point to get your curiosity going so that you can actually take this learning journey over and investigate further if this is of interest to you. So the way the presentation is structured is I have a few slides that talk about what is finance versus financial services operations, what are the kind of key skill sets that financial services operations experts or professionals need to possess. What does this role really mean? What type of problems they solve? And and also kind of trying to give you an overview of what financial services are and where do these operations professionals generally fit. And then I have some, kind of takeaways in terms of some learnings and courses that you can look at in terms of upskilling yourself if you are interested in such a career. So in the beginning, basically you have finance versus financial services operations. We talked about it briefly. There is this concept that people, I think, might be thinking that this is for people with finance major, and that's not true. So on the left is what does a finance professional do? So firstly, a finance professional, is responsible to manage your P&L. The second one is they take care of your financial statements, which is your P&L, cash flow statement, your balance sheet. They will take care of your payables and receivables. They will take care of your current account management, the cash that's sitting in the current account management, how it should be invested. And, it can get very, very complex, but it's kind of in that same domain. There is an aspect of cost accounting, activity-based costing, and things like that. There is some taxing, expertise that they would possess. Again, people with finance backgrounds will major and minor in any of these. Again, not an exhaustive list, but that's kind of the domains that they would operate in. And they can be in any industry, right? Because you need these functions to be performed across any and every single industry. So that's kind of the domain of the finance professional. When I talk about financial services operations, we are talking specifically about operations of financial services. So the distinction is very key here. So you are talking actually about operations professional. So if you think about any industry, let's take a manufacturing industry, right? A factories that are making car. You have a finance person there who is like sitting in the head office and managing the finances, and there is an operations individual, say an operations manager, who is looking at the shop floor of the factory that is making these cars and making sure that it's the factory is set up properly, you don't have any bottlenecks, the flow of the spare parts is optimized for the output that you want, there is appropriate quality control, and then they are constantly trying to improve the running of the plant. Now take that person and put them in a bank or in a broker dealer. Now here we are not making cars, but we are kind of producing financial products. The products are already defined. So somebody has applied, say, for a home loan, somebody has applied for a mortgage, somebody has applied for a car loan, somebody wants to invest 10 lakh rupees in a mutual fund, somebody else wants to, some company wants to ship something, they're exporting something from India into the US, and they want financing for that. There can be many needs. They all come to different financial institutions, have put in their request, and it's the financial operations person's job to make sure that that request is processed. We take care of all the requisite checks and balances to make sure that it's done appropriately, and then that money is dispersed. And then we are, after that, kind of post completion of the request, are in touch with the customers at appropriate moments to make sure that the relationship is sound and we are not taking any undue risk. So that's kind of the processing of the financial services. As an operations manager, just like a plant manager would do, you would be responsible to make sure that you are producing things in the most cost efficient manner, you are improving customer service, and you are actually making the process better. And we'll talk about it a little bit further. So we are talking about operations professionals in financial services. And then the financial services, there is a huge spectrum of them, starting from banks, then there are investment banks, capital markets like broker dealers, insurance, lending, and investing. And I know there are a lot of words. I don't know how many of you are aware of how many of them in terms of what they do. So I have like a few slides just to kind of give you a little bit of a disambiguated version of this. So going back to, so why financial services operations? Firstly, not because I have made a career out of it. I do think that this is a good career path for certain type of individuals who kind of like problem solving. When I say problem solving, if there is something going wrong or something is stuck, if you come across day to day, even in your family, some situation is problematic. If you are the type who kind of doesn't want to run away from it, but will get in the middle of it and will try to solve the problem. Okay, what's happening? What's the problem? How can we fix this? And you are the kind of the navigator, the orchestrator of trying to solve situations, solve problems. If that's your natural inclination, then this is a really good job for you, because that's what you will get to do for a living. Second is firefighting. Again, it's a different type of personalities, but if you are a person who gets very stressed out, who likes things to be in a very structured manner, who like to plan things in very, very detail, and they want everything execution to be like perfect, this job probably is not for you, because this job does include a lot of firefighting. And what I mean by firefighting is, in financial operations, the product is not tangible, right? It's all intangible products. It's a service. So you are giving people financing, you are giving them investments, you are giving them these kind of conceptual things, products, money. It's a very touchy topic for everyone, right? Money is very close to heart. We don't want to lose money, we don't want to be overcharged. And a lot of time companies and people are trusting all their like life's investments and savings and everything in your hand. And what we are effectively dealing with is people, and people at sometimes their most stressed out moments. So you should be able to take stress, and what I mean by take stress is not like stress on your personal life as such, but be able to firefight. Like a lot of things will come, things change, situations change, and you should be able to get in there and kind of figure the situation out and fix it. And I say that specifically because there are people who don't like it, but there are also people like me who love it. I love that adrenaline rush. I love that feeling of being in the middle of things, trying to solve some problem and trying to use all my brain cells to figure out who are the right resources to pull into this, who are the right people to call in and get these things moving. So if that gives you a rush, you'll enjoy it. So you're going to enjoy this role. Sorry for the typo on the second line, but what I mean is this is also a people role. This is all about managing people and leading teams. After first couple of years, you will start kind of managing teams in operations role. You will, and that's the third bullet. In about 3 to 5 years, you're going to have about 10 to 15, maybe 20. I mean, again, depends on your own career trajectory. But operations is basically a lot of people doing kind of, think about this as a factory, right? So you will have a lot of people that are kind of doing the basic kind of processing work, which is like, think about this as like your factory workers. Your first job is going to be able to be a shop floor manager, so to speak, and manage people. And then you will keep on growing, managing larger and larger teams. So if I look around, people with about say 8 to 10 years of experience are managing team of like 150, 200 people. They're global teams. The second thing is, it's very important, is because these are core parts of the financial services operations chain, and they are the first line of defense in terms of risk management. Your kind of monetary gains kind of generally jump after 2 to 3 years of work, and once you start getting into these team leader and more responsible positions. Because for example, if I look at our company and some of our operations in Bangalore, a team manager who is managing say a team of 30, 50 people, they're also managing the risk for the organization for say $500 million, right? When I say managing the risk, is like that's the amount of transactions they're overseeing. So if there is something wrong that happens, we do something incorrect, either through human error or some system issue happens, and I'm sure if you have seen something around Citibank, they wrongly paid somebody that they were not supposed to pay, some $400 million, and now they're trying to get it back. All of these things are managed in operations. So the operations manager is taking all that risk on based on his experience and is managing that for the organization. And the organizations see that and appreciate that. And therefore, your career growth and your compensation is kind of matching to that, is what I would like to say. Because there is this misconception of these are back office roles. These are just like, you're just data entry operators. That is just not true. Because again, yes, if you are just processing a credit card application, maybe you are at that end in terms of a data entry operations. But if you are at a operations center for a global financial institution which manages global clients and is doing global trades, the scale is much bigger, so your kind of canvas is much bigger. So those were kind of some of the high points as to why I think a career in financial operations would be interesting. Because it's, if you are the personality type that I mentioned, there is a lot of growth, lot of monetary compensation that can be achieved. And third but not least is also because of the way the world has changed and the interconnected nature of the world, especially for people that are based out of India, the world is the limit. Like, you don't even have to leave India. A lot of my colleagues in our Bangalore operations team are actually running global teams. So we have a lot of global functional heads that are based out of Bangalore, and they run a team not only spanning in Bangalore, but they have team members in Warsaw, in London, in Salt Lake City, in New York, and all of them are reporting into the Bangalore based function head. And that has happened because the function head in Bangalore is the most experienced and has the best grasp of the end-to-end process. So the world is getting flat, and you can, rise up to being global functional leads in this area because you have the opportunities to really execute on that in the new world. Um, so that's kind of my spiel on why things financial services operations make sense. So I just this next slide, I wanted to take a moment to just disambiguate. I've been talking about financial services operation. What does it exactly mean? So this is my attempt to super simplify it for you. So on the top, where you can see these stick figures, right, where there is starts with a single individual, then it goes to a little family, then there is a little small office on entrepreneurial setup, then there is a bigger institution. So this is basically the client spectrum, meaning who are the people, who are the clients of this financial services, I would say, domain. So it's on a spectrum starting from the individual, you and me, every single person has some financial needs. So they are going to interact with the banks, and goes right up to very large institutions, which is the second here. So we have large institutions who have multiple businesses, and these institutions, however, are kind of national institutions. Like, so if you think about, I don't know, some kind of a very big Indian conglomerate who's kind of based mostly in India. So I would think, again, it's not the perfect example because TCS they also have global presence, but let's say who are Indian based like Tata. So you're talking about large institutions. They are also dealing with clients. And then and then the extreme right end is like a global account, which is a very large financial services institution, say Pepsi, which is just truly global and dealing with every single country and has many, many needs. So that's kind of the client spectrum. And for all these clients, right, they have kind of three types of needs at a very high level. So one is cash management, which is, if you think about for an individual, it's like savings account, checkings account, those kind of things. And then when you talk about institutions, there is, they are doing fund transfers, they are doing cash management, they have, millions and crores of rupees coming in and going out every day. So they need a partner in their bank who can manage all this incoming, outgoing, and invest it in the short term to get the maximum benefit. And then there are current accounts. So basically all sort of cash management functions. Now, every single box here, we will also say is a product of the financial system that a financial institution is providing to some sort of a client. So think about this. So there is a saving account. So your local, say, Union Bank is giving this for your family, right? But there is also Tata, who also needs some amount of cash management, and maybe Citibank is providing it for them. So it's kind of similar, just the client set is different. The second stripe here is lending. And again, going from the super retail end, which is where you will have your credit cards, your personal loan, your car loans, your home loans, for the retail segment. And then for the small and medium enterprise segment here, going up to the very large institution and global account segment, you provide the businesses with lines of credit, you give them collateralized financing, arrange financing, short term, long term, you give them financing based on their inventory, and you also finance their trade, international trade, letters of credit, etc. Now these are all again products. So this is kind of the lending side of it. And the last one is the investments. So all of these, segments are making money, they have profits, and that profits need to be either, that profit needs to be reinvested so that they can keep on making returns on those profits or their income. So then I've put insurance here because insurance is theoretically not an investment, but it's sold as an investment. You have insurance, mutual funds, then you have stocks, ETFs, commodities, FX options, all types of different investment or kind of risk management products. So that's kind of the, I would say, these products again going into this. So again, taking it back to our discussion of what operations professionals are. So operations professionals are responsible for managing the production of these financial products. So think about every single box of this. There is an operations professional. If somebody in a large institution reaches out to a bank saying, I need trade finance, right? There is an operations professional that's going to afterwards take in this request and process it to see whether they are eligible to get financing and how much, and make sure all those things kind of tick and tie together. Obviously there are systems and rules that are built in various systems, so it's not like all in your head, but that's where the operations professionals would get involved, kind of at a high level. In terms of just the same slide, if you look at this red box, what I've tried to say is financial institutions will take a segment and product combination and layer it on a specific geography, and that's their kind of combination. So for example, if you have, let's say there is a financial institution, say Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. So they are very specific. They only do this stripe here, insurance, and nothing else. And they will do this insurance for maybe retail, SME. And if they have talking about life insurance, then obviously they're only talking about kind of retail and key man insurance. So here, now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you think about a global financial institution like, say, Citibank, they are going to be across all client segments, and they are going to be across pretty much all products. So they are going to do everything for everyone. So that's kind of the other end of the spectrum. Now, my employer, Goldman Sachs, they would be very specific in the bottom stripe, right? They're just doing these investment products, and they're creating these products, and sometimes they're creating ETFs, and they're selling them, and they're guiding their clients as to how to invest. And the second thing they would do is raise funds for these large institutions through IPOs and financing from the market, or if they are issuing bonds or things like that. But they are doing so. So financial institutions can be super specific, or they are very, very big. A general rule is, what I've seen is, things obviously get very more complex as you move from the left to the right and from top to the bottom. So like if you are here somewhere, right, like global accounts and like all these investment products, these are the most complex things. This is where you're talking about global capital market flows and trading and things like that. So, and it's very simple. The career growth and the remuneration and everything that follows, obviously you are going to get rewarded more if you can bring value to the most complex of things. So if you are processing savings account in a bank, yeah, I would think it's not a very exciting prospect as an operations professional, because it's literally comes down to almost like data entry. But if you go to this kind of bottom corner, like if you have global account clients that are you're managing for their, say, forex transactions on Turkish lira, it's a very complex process. And that's where you are going to really reap a lot of value in terms of building your expertise and kind of growing there. So the reason I put this slide is just to kind of highlight that I'm talking about financial services operations, but not everything in this domain is the same. It moves on complexity and the segment. So more towards the right bottom you go in terms of like more and more complex products, take those opportunities is what I will say. So if you have roles, right, go towards more, I would recommend, if you want to be an operations professional and really want a big canvas to play, go towards the more large institutional kind of global accounts and complex processes, because more complex the product is, more valuable you are. Otherwise, the less complex the product and the services, you can just be easily automated. So operations roles. So as I kind of talked about it a little bit, in terms of the operations role, so they kind of look at, and I was talking about this before, right? Think about this as the plant, right? You're making something. So on the left is the distribution. So these are the people, obviously the marketing sales people, who are responsible to going and kind of soliciting that need from the clients and selling it to the clients. So I've kept them out because that's not the focus for today's discussion. So but those are your relationship managers, your wealth managers, your sales individuals, or they can be called agents, depending again on where you are in the segment. So they will originate and generate the business, and they give to the operations people to complete. Now, operations have kind of two hats that they would mention. One is run the bank, which is basically process the application, underwrite, manage the ring, and manage customer service, which is basically do the BAU processing and make sure whatever is incoming is outgoing in a short period of time and of good quality. So that's kind of just the production line that you are trying to maintain. As that production line is running, you step away from it, and then you also wear the other hat, which is improving the plant, right? Because your job is not just to be there and push buttons and pass, the traffic. The people that differentiate themselves and have long careers have this mindset of how I can make this process better. So your job is to reduce cost of making this product, improve scalability. If the business grows tenfold, you don't want to have tenfold more people from an organization perspective to process it. You need to be able to scale the process in an automated fashion, so that even if your business grows tenfold, you can still process everything and produce everything with maybe 2% growth on people. So how do you do that creatively and improve service? Because in financial services, you are not getting anything real. You are just getting money, which is real, but obviously it's just a number in your bank. So all you are seeing is your experience and touch points with whoever you are dealing, and how do you actually improve that service? And what does service even mean for different segments? Does it mean less interaction with the customer? Does it mean more interaction with the clients? And what type of interactions do the clients like? And it's like a huge domain in itself. And then basically the two tools that you will try to improve always is basically how can I automate this process and how I can simplify this process. So I kind of just tried to lay out in terms of 4 main pillars of what an operations manager does. The first one is you will manage your team, because you're always in team management roles, so motivate and challenge and develop your team. The second one is relationship management, because you're going to be interacting with a lot of salespeople, a lot of clients, regulators. You need to be able to build relationships. So it's also very important in these roles, because the churn is lower. So what I mean by that is salespeople churn more. They'll come and go, they'll come and go. You are the one who's going to be there for a longer time, and your team is going to be there like a longer term team for the client. So you need to be able to build relationship with your clients, which are deep, and you also need to be able to broaden them across multiple products. And the third important pillar is you need to be able to improve the process. So you need to be able to analyze the process, improve it, and develop the solutions as to what needs to be done. And the last but not least is basically you should be able to drive change. What I mean by that is it's not good enough that you just have these ideas for improvement. You need to be able to get these ideas into implementation and execution. And what I mean by that is you may not be the most senior person, but you need to be able to influence the right decision makers with your ideas, so that they take your ideas, you get support and funding for your ideas, you produce win-win solutions. Sometimes you want to change a process, but the salespeople may not be agreeable to it. You need to be able to negotiate and come to a win-win solution, and then be able to execute on these ideas. I think the first and second is absolutely a must-have. If you don't have that, you will not last in these roles. But the third and the fourth, which is the improve process and drive change, is what will actually take you to the next and higher roles. And the bottom two things, what I've mentioned here, is communicate with impact and develop subject matter expertise. That's the foundation. Being able to communicate your ideas in an impactful way and take people with you and get them excited about it. It's a key skill. And the second one is, developing the subject matter expertise that so that your ideas have the backing, and you have, quote unquote street credit, that you know what you're talking about. Are there any questions so far, Ankita? I'll take a quick 30-second pause here.
Ma'am, I don't see any hand raised till now.
Okay. So I have, so then on this next slide, I just wanted to give a little examples of some of the problems that you will get to deal with and solve as operations manager, and see if these are of interest to you. Is this something that you would like to do? Because that's a good indicator of understanding if these roles are for you. So on the left is basically what I have are the run the bank roles, and on the right are sort of the change the bank roles kind of a things. And these are some of the examples I have faced in my life. So the first one is, recently in one of my previous roles, we had a global client who is a huge investment company. They have their own clients. We provide them access to capital and investments across the globe. We meaning my employer. The client comes saying that I need to open 100 accounts in the next 2 hours, and because there is a huge volatility in the Turkish lira, so I need these accounts opened in the next 4 hours so that they can trade today, in today's business day. And this service request comes at around 9. Now, generally, it takes us about a week to open an account, because when you are opening an account, you have to do a multiple sets of due diligence on the accounts and the owner, and what their jurisdiction is, where they are domiciled, are they allowed to trade this product or not. So as an operations person, it's your role to make sure that you are complying with all the rules and regulations that your organization has set up and the regulators have set up, because the pressure from sales is always to just go ahead and do it, but then you are putting the organization at the risk, because if you are not compliant, you will get like a $500 million fine someday. And that has happened many times. So this kind of a request comes, and then it's your job to kind of thread the needle and walk the very tightrope as to, do I just say no and kind of let go of this business for the organization, saying that we can't do it, or do we go ahead and do it? But then how do we do it without cutting corners, right? You don't want to kind of take shortcuts and not do it. And this is where your subject matter expertise comes in, that if you have the expertise and you look at all these applications and you understand where do they fit and how much due diligence do they need or not need, this is where your relationships will come into play, because it's not just your team. There are 5 other teams that need to coordinate. Do you have good, strong relationships with them, that because of this special request, can you pull on them so that they can execute on this? And, can you get it done without cutting corners, without breaking any rules? And does this excite you? And this is what I mean by the firefighting. So you have this problem thrown at you, something needs to be done. Does it excite you or does it scare you? If it excites you, then then these types of jobs are definitely for you. The second, but these are kind of more simpler problems, right? These are business as usual, day-to-day things. The second one is, the bank has done a sales event. We got a lot of applications for life insurance, and but when you look at all the applications, you realize that these applications don't have the know your customer forms properly filled, and it doesn't feel right. That these does not seem to be the right sort of applications. Basically, either somebody has there is some misinterpretation or misrepresentation, or both. What do you do? Because obviously, as always, you have pressure. And what do you do if you are the manager? You don't have like a manager there. So you are supposed to take a decision. So this is where, again, your subject matter expertise comes into play, and your ability to really stand your ground. And again, your relationships, that if you have to refuse to do this and say, like, I will not do this because this is not making sense, this is not as per the guidelines we have, you're going to get a lot of brickbats. So you need to be able to stand your ground and have confidence in your own judgment that this should not be going through. Case study 3 is basically, one of the projects I had previously worked on when I was in Citibank. Reserve Bank of India came up with more of a new regulation. You have to report certain exports, and it all needs to be done in like 3 months time, and you need to report on Reserve Bank to Reserve Bank every single person who is exporting anything and every single dollar that's coming in. So go work with technology and build something that can happen. So here your skills about like analysis, writing requirements, understanding the process, writing controls, all of these will come in play. You will work together with technology and build a new system, test it, and release it. So there is a little bit of that IT business analysis angle to it. And a lot of operational roles will have to do it because you will be the subject matter expert that would be called on when anything new comes in and you have to make changes in any of the applications or any of the systems. The fourth case study is kind of a, just an open-ended question that one of our senior managers, like one of our, the marketing head asked, like, we are seeing a lot of complaint uptake. What's going on? We don't have any information. Please tell us what's happening. Open-ended question. Now, in this scenario, I had to figure out where are they getting this data? How are they tracking these complaints? Then look at this data, do a lot of number crunching and analysis to see if there are any trends in this data, to see why these customer complaints are increasing. Talk with multiple peoples to get qualitative feedback, show some trends, and kind of present it back. Is more of an analysis project in terms of why the customers are complaining, what is actually going on, what has changed, what service levels have dropped. And another outcome of this study was we realized that we don't have a very good complaints management system because we are logging some complaints and other complaints are getting lost. That's why the marketing head is now getting this anecdotal feedback from the sales channel that complaints are increasing because we are not logging everything. So one outcome then again was to build a complaint management system and implement it. So that was then a long project of 6 to 9 months to work with technology, give them requirements, and drive it. And the last one is one of the recent projects that I worked in end of 2020. Goldman Sachs acquired a new company which is in similar field, and they do custody operations. And I was tasked to go in and see what their operational processes are end to end, everything, how they are doing it, and give my recommendations as to what things needs to be changed, what things needs to be discarded, and what new processes need to be implemented, and where is the risk. When I keep on talking about risk, is basically making an error, making a wrong payment, releasing collateral when we shouldn't, and putting the bank at risk. So the last one was again a huge opportunity and a huge project because you get to go in and really, as an expert, understand entire company, all their operational processes, and then give you a recommendation and then put a plan in place to remediate it. So kind of, starting from the first to fifth, again, is a spectrum of complexity and things that you get to work on. One is just pure firefighting, just call a bunch of people, figure something out, look at it, get it done, to the last one where you are looking at a systemic process, looking at all the components of it and doing a very thorough analysis. And the stakes are obviously very high because you obviously miss something in the last one, which is the fifth case study. You're going to put the company at a very high risk. So these are the type of problem, from my experience, what you get to solve. If these are of interest to you, these excite you, then this might be a good career. In terms of key skill sets, and this would be interesting and a little bit surprising to maybe some of you, is that I don't think in an operations role you need a lot of deep financial knowledge. You don't need like a financial modeling knowledge. You don't need to know how to, price options. You don't need to know, kind of, Black-Scholes formula for options pricing. It's not really relevant because the products are already there. It's just a fact. So what you do need though is a very strong analytics skill set because you're going to be thrown data on a constant basis and large data sets. You will have data sets of like millions and millions of rows many times. So you need to be able to, like in this complaint management example I gave, I had an Excel sheet that was given to me of all the complaints we had for the last 6 months, and service requests. Like every time our call center had interacted with anybody, they gave me a dump of the data. And I asked for everything because there was one problem that we were trying to see. If it's actually a complaint, but the agent is miscategorizing it as something else. So we just had all the requests, service requests, everything. And it's something around, around 5 million records. And then you need to be able to have the analytics skill set to go through this and pull insights and inferences. So I would say, advanced Excel, SQL, Alteryx, Tableau, some of these systems which are kind of analytics are very key. These skills are very hot in the operations domain. Anybody with these skill sets is a huge value add to the team. Understanding of the global financial systems and Indian banking system. This is kind of descriptive knowledge. I'm not saying you need to be able to do any new product development, but you at least need to know what are the financial systems kind of key components, what roles do bank play, what different hats do banks wear, and how they all interact. So there are many books in the market to kind of understand that, but it's important that you have a basic understanding of how the global financial services system and global finance system works. If you have some continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma knowledge, that's a added process design knowledge in terms of, looking at some of the theories like critical chain and, to see how do you identify bottlenecks in the process and how to alleviate the bottlenecks. Business analysis, because you're going to be interacting with IT quite a bit and giving them requirements and helping them build the applications and products that you need. And the last but not least is team management on org design, because you're going to be managing a lot of people, a lot of teams eventually. So your ability to motivate them, stretch them, give them guidance is really critical. And I'm now gonna, so that's kind of my description of financial operations in terms of, where they sit, what they do, and what kind of careers you can have, what type of skill set you should have, and what type of problems that an operations manager get to solve. And, before this session, I had sent out a survey in terms of what is it that you all would like to hear about. All of you did say that you wanted to hear more about financial operations. Hence, I put that kind of section together. This last slide is just something that I wanted to put together for you. Hopefully, it's of use. It's something that I thought I have learned, I think, over the years, and I tried to condense it in terms of quote unquote my gyan, so to speak, in terms of managing your career. I would like to just kind of share this with you, and hopefully this is of interest to you as well. Now I have been working for close to, I would say, 20 years, and I've worked in different companies and geographies. So I'm this, I guess, wise old woman. But in terms of managing your career, I think there are kind of three circles. And this would be, I think, applicable anywhere. So this is just a generic guidance. Hopefully it's useful to you. So first circle is managing the work, the content of the work. That's one circle. The second one is managing others. And the third one is managing yourself. And I think where there is a confluence of all three in a perfect balance, and if you can stay in that middle here, your career generally then progresses really well. If you lean into one and ignore others, your career suffers. And I'll give a little bit more color on this. So it's basically you have managing work, which is your subject matter expertise. So the idea is you manage your work really well. That is a no-brainer. You have to do it. So the first, and I would say three things that I have come to realize. The first one is run to the fire, meaning if you are in any situation and something is broken and something is not working, don't be the person that cribs about it. If there is a fire, run to the fire and try to fix it. And that's what builds your career, because that's what gives you this credit, and that what gives you this street credit. That's what gives you in your superior's eyes, you will really differentiate yourself that this is a person that runs to the problem and tries to solve the problem, the most complex problem. Any situation you are in, see what is the most complex problem and try to go to the problem and try to fix the problem. Second one is stay current. And last but not least, be the hardest working person in the room, because that nothing can beat. So every single time, no matter what you do, and no matter what opportunity is presented, try to give it your best, try to put your best foot forward always. Sounds very simple, hard to achieve, but that's kind of managing work. I used to think when I started work that managing work, that top part is what I needed to do and everything else will be taken care of. But that's not true. You will say, you would hear things like your work will speak for itself. It does sometimes, but sometimes there are a lot of people and everyone's working, and everyone's work is speaking for themselves, and there is a lot of noise from a manager perspective. So that is the second, which is managing others. And what I wanted to call out is all the important decisions about your career, everything that will move you forward or keep you back, will propel you and give you great opportunities or not give you those opportunities. All those decisions are made in rooms where you are not present. Just take a moment to think about it. You are not there to make your case. There are others, your peers sometimes, but mostly your seniors, your managers, other people, your clients. They are giving the feedback. Based on that, your career is progressing or not. Once you come to this realization, you will realize it's just not important to just manage your work, but managing others, their perceptions, and making sure you're communicating the work you're doing to the right people and communicating it often enough, and building relationships is as and equally important for your career progress. So don't ignore that second one. And the third one is managing yourself. I think better you manage yourself, better you're going to manage all aspects of your life, your career. So, there is a lot of power in habit. So the easiest hack to success is developing good habits, because so that you're not thinking every single time. There are a lot of good habits, and I'm not going to go into detail. There is actually a book I'm going to recommend. So build those habits, and last, but you are what you practice. So what you practice every day is what you become. So just be mindful. What are you practicing? Are you practicing being negative? Are you practicing being disgruntled? Are you practicing complaining? Or are you practicing being positive? Are you practicing being thoughtful? Are you practicing being kind? Are you practicing being productive? What you practice every day is what you will become. So just be mindful of not practicing negativity and complaining and kind of behaviors that are going to hold you back. So that was it. Last but not least, some of the courses that I think I found on Coursera, please use them, and you can also find more courses. And there are two books I'm going to recommend. One is Atomic Habits, and second one is Getting Things Done. I think in early careers, when you are starting, these are the two most important books. I think I read them few years ago. I wish I had read them, when I was 20 years old. And it's really game-changing, life-changing things. Help you work on yourself and get some good practices built early in your life that will really take you long. So that was it. I know I took a long time, so sorry for that, and I hope this has been helpful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful session and for sharing your knowledge. Now, I would request everyone to please raise their hands and ask your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ankita. Thank you, ma'am, for your exceptional session. I mean, this is the first type of session, but I'm hearing about and I'm much interested about your sessions. And ma'am, thank you for the session. But the one question from my side is that uh, there are a lot of courses, there are a lot of things in this current scenario as we have been, I mean, getting the courses, online courses. But finding out the right courses for your right, I mean, profile. How can we select that, ma'am? I mean, just now you suggested for the two courses. So if someone is taking the finance operations, then what are the courses? I mean, more he should look into.
I think that's a good question. So what I would do is, I have the materials that I shared, right? So for financial operations, I have searched on 2 courses and gave you. One is a course in operations from Wharton. The second one is Excel. And the third course, which I don't have it, but you can find, is a course which will give you some background into global financial services. Like, you know, the content that you need to know, right? I had given you what are the skill sets that you should have: analytics, Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, and a basic understanding of global financial services. So those were the 4 things, out of which I have given you courses for 2 already about operations in Excel. But you can also do things around SQL, Tableau, Alteryx. It's in the slide. So look at the skill sets that are required and then find a course that focuses on that skill set. I think that's what I've tried to do. Is basically, if you look at one of the second last slides, which says that you need to have these skill sets. So for those skill sets, just find the courses that are required, because you're not going to find a ready-made course for, like, financial operations. Just like, take one course and it's all done.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm
Hello.
Amlan, and I'm from PGDM1. Ma'am, you were speaking about financial analysis. So, ma'am, could you throw some more light on it as to what sort of a job role would that be? As in, what is expected from a financial analyst?
Um, I wasn't really talking about financial analysis, because financial analyst is a very different job role. I was talking about financial operations, and then you will need to use data analysis, because when you talk about a financial analyst, it's a slightly different job role. I think you need a finance major, and you may be doing like credit analysis or P&L analysis or things like that. And I'm not really sure about that, because I don't have a lot of expertise in that area. And that's what I want to also you guys to understand. These words all sound similar, but they mean very different things. Like, financial operations means very different than financial analyst. So it's 2 different things.
Thank you, ma'am.